Hi, my name's Rob Ryder, speaking out of West Cornwall, and I'm joined again tonight with Patrick Quanton from Andalusia.
Good
Hi,
evening,
Patrick.
Rob. There we go again.
Right. Yeah, here we go again. So, as usual, we'll do a little quick recap before we go on tonight's subject matter. Um, I haven't got many notes really for the recap because it was quite simple in the way that you were trying to talk about acute illness as a healing process rather than a disease, and inflammation as a healing process rather than a disease, and to specifically not give these things a name and focus on the process, which is the process of healing. And that was the idea we could take from last week is illness we can see as an intelligent response to a buildup of waste in the system. And even though that's a physical process, there'll always be an energetic meaning behind that, but that manifests as a physical process. And if we can start to see that process as an intelligent process, and one of the things I've incorporated into how I speak to people is when they're ill, instead of saying what's gone wrong, is to try and ask yourself, what is my body trying to achieve? Which takes it from an error that's gone wrong to an intelligent process that my body is instigating.
Yeah.
And so again, we're coming back now to an intelligent process rather than a machine that's broken. And that's kind of a sum up of the inflammation process last week, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So this week, to move on, in your book, Your Health in Your Hands, on page 30, it's not actually a full chapter, but it's kind of a sub-chapter called The Relative Importance of Food. And it's not even an enormous sub-chapter because you simplify it quite a lot. I'm not going to go into any more because obviously I'm going to have some observations as well at the end of it. So I'd just like you to start as a fresh on that rather than me putting any observations out there now, and just go into this process of the importance of food and our digestive system, how it functions, what it is, if we leave that with you.
Yeah, so the digestive system seems to be playing a central role in disease and medicine as it's portrayed to us. Everything is about diet. Everything is about what you eat or shouldn't eat and how much you should eat of it and so on and so forth. But before we start going into the food business, because the food is what we put in our mouth, swallow, and it enters our system, I would like really to make a few observations about the anatomy of the digestive system, or at least the entrance gate to the digestive system, because it's something that people don't realize, and I'm pretty sure doctors don't realize. One is, we put food and drink in our mouth. That's an open area which is connected to the outside world. At the other end, we've got a tube coming down to our arse, which in essence is also a gate to the outside world. And in effect, between those 2 points, there is nothing that blocks that transit. In other words, the entire digestive system or digestive tract, as it's described in the by the medical profession, from mouth, throat, esophagus, down to the stomach, the gut, and so on, the entire system is an open tube at both ends, open. which actually means that the inside of our digestive system is the outside world. Our body is constructed around an open tube. What does that mean? It means that what you put in your mouth has not entered your body yet. It can go straight through without affecting it one iota. Don't believe me? Swallow a pound coin and see what happens. You haven't lost it. It will come back to you in exactly the same state as it went in. Why? Because there is nothing to break it down, and therefore it just falls through the open tube from top to bottom. Finished. It's an open tube. The inside of that tube is the outside world. To me, that is an important thing to realize, because that means already that what I eat, what I put in my mouth, is not necessarily going to affect me. So what I eat, I am, is not correct. It can't be, because I need to absorb it first. It first has to enter my body from that outside world, from the inner tube, before it can affect me. The second point is about the hepatic circulation, or in other words, the liver circulation. It's a bit strange, this is, because people may know about the general layout of the blood circulation. Yeah, the blood leaves your heart, and from there it goes to every system in your body. It provides it with, as they say, food, but in essence it's really oxygen that it provides all the cells within your body. At the other end, after the cells, the circulation goes back up and it goes to the lungs, where it goes to the heart, and from the heart, different part of the heart, it gets pumped into the lungs, where it picks up the oxygen, goes to the heart, and then goes around again. So that's the general layout. But there is a strange part to this, and that is the hepatic circulation. This circulation, this part of the circulation, is separate from what I just described. What does that entail? All the blood vessels from your stomach and your gut don't go to the heart, and from the heart to the lungs, and from the lungs around the body. No, they go straight to the liver. All the blood vessels coming away from the gut lining and the stomach lining, all that blood goes to the liver. From the liver, it re-enters the other circulation, say the normal or the big circulation, and so it goes to the heart, from there to the lungs, and then round. But what does this mean? It means that everything that is absorbed through the gut, through the stomach and the gut, goes directly to the liver. Why is this important? Because the liver is the biggest internal cleaning, detoxification organ that we have. The blood that comes from the intestines end up in large chambers, blood chambers, inside the liver. Here, the liver takes out of that blood, there's pools of blood, takes the matter out of it in order to start the breakdown process and the recycling process of material stuff. In other words, of everything that has been absorbed through the gut, through the membranes of the intestine. And from there, once the blood has been cleaned from all that, what's apparently called rubbish, because otherwise, why would you send it to a recycling plant if it wasn't rubbish, if it was food? But it isn't. It goes directly to the recycling plant to be broken down into smaller pieces that can be reused for something else. And then we go to the lungs, pick up some oxygen, and then we're off again. So what we eat doesn't necessarily enter our body, and what does enter our body gets broken down straight away before it reaches any cells, before it can go anywhere else. Wow, if that is the case, look it up in your anatomy books. What does it mean? It means that nothing that you eat, no material stuff that enters your mouth and then you swallow, that enters your digestive system, none of that is used for any, is directly used for any processes anywhere in your body. Nothing. It gets broken down straight away. So, that's interesting. If we then look at how diet has become the main focus of the medical profession, there's another weird thing about it. The World Health Organization gives out or describes the healthy diet. It lays out the various points that your healthy diet should contain, types of food, how much, and so on and so forth. It does this in a way that it's the same for everybody. So it regards all humans on this planet as functioning in the same way and having the same needs, the same dietary food requirements. I find that very strange, because the first line is that a healthy diet consists of 5 portions of fruit and vegetables per day. Right? Now, I would like to see anybody who takes this to the Eskimos and tell them that they're going to be, because that is what the World Health Organization does. It tells you that if you don't have this healthy diet, you are at a very much increased risk of all sorts of diseases, you know, heart diseases, infections, cancer even. Take this diet, this is only one aspect of it. 5 portions of fresh fruit and vegetables every day. Take that to the Eskimos, you know, where in regions they only have any kind of vegetables for less than 3 months a year. The rest of the time they eat yak milk and some grains from which they can make some bread, you know, and that's it. So as far as the world, or the conclusion, or the supposition from the World Health Organization is that these people must be extremely unhealthy. That, of course, is not borne out by the statistics. So we're not the same, you know, and we know that. Our food is not the same either, because in nature, what grows during the winter and what grows during the summer are different types of vegetables and fruits. So nature doesn't think that we should have the same thing every day, that we require the same thing every day. And it obviously doesn't think that with regards to human beings, but it obviously also doesn't think that plants and animals require the same food intake day in, day out, every day. It changes. But the World Health Organization, the basis of our medical system, doesn't agree with that. So then I think we should ask the question, what is food then? Because if what we take in goes to immediately goes to a recycling plant to be broken down, so why would we eat? Well, indeed, we don't need to eat. There are people on this planet that don't eat. Breatharians live literally of the fresh air. They live off their breathing oxygen. That's it. They may now and again put something in their mouth, but that is to do with the sensation and the feeling. It's not to feed themselves. So it is possible. I'm not saying that everybody should become a breatharian. We're not made for that as yet. Yeah, we may develop in that direction. We don't know. We'll leave that where it is. But what is then the function of food? Because it appears that most of us can't do without it. You have to eat. You have to drink. They even say that you have to drink 2 liters of water every day. Now, if you calculate how many people live on this earth and you put 2 liters of drinking water to every person, then you're way short of the amount of drinkable water that is available on this planet. So again, it doesn't make any sense, because don't forget that we, nature and everything in it, has survived for millions of years without these instructions. Yeah? So why is it that we want to eat, that we need to eat in order to sustain ourselves? Well, what is food? Food is kind of matter. Ah, yeah, okay. All kinds of, yeah, different things like sugars and proteins and fats and, okay, fine. It's matter. But we now know, or we should know, and if you don't, go and listen to the earlier podcast. The matter is energy. It's a manifestation, a particular manifestation of a particular energy, or an energy balance. Yeah, certain energies together form certain materials, and different combination of the same kind of energies form different materials. So our food is also energy, and it's not that you eat and then you gain a lot of energy because of what you eat. It's the opposite. If you eat, and you can test this out yourself, make sure you have a heavy meal and then go and run a marathon straight after you leave the table and you start running. Yeah, you won't feel very well. After a meal, we don't gain energy, we lose energy. Why? Because we need to absorb that food and we need to break it down, which happens in the liver. That means you are using a lot of energy to get rid of the food that you've just eaten. And after that, you can gain energy. But first you lose energy. So eating means that you're losing energy. The food itself is made out of energy. We are made out of energy. Our surrounding area is made out of energy. Yeah? Everything is made out of energy. And these energies talk to each other and they exchange information. Right? Now, the energy around us is expressed in different ways. One of the ways is what grows around us, what animals live around us, what the climate is like, and so on. So the product, if you like, of our environment, or one of the products of our environment, is food. And the kind of food, the kind of energy balance that creates the food depends on a lot of different things, coming together of different things. In material form, you can think of, the quality of the soil, the quality of the water, how much water, what's the temperature like over a certain period of time, how much sunshine is there. All these things and plenty more play a part in what grows around us and what the quality of that is. Because if you look at, take fruit quality, yeah, it's not because every year this tree gives me oranges that those oranges, year in, year out, year after year, that they are the same. They're not. All the fruit, all the vegetables, the grasses, everything is different each year because the circumstances, the energy of the environment that comes together is different, and it's expressed in, amongst other things, the things that we eat. Yeah, so that's the energetic value of food is not the amount of calories that are in there, the amount of sugars, these fats. No, it is the quality of food is the quality of the energy that is producing the food, that is manifesting the food. And that depends on a lot of other factors. So what grows most this year in comparison to the year before, or the quality of the orange or the apple compared with the year before, is different because the circumstances are different. So the food is a manifestation of an energy balance of that moment, of that time period. That is also what grows in the winter. So the food that we eat in the winter, or I should say the food that nature produces in the winter, is different from the food that it produces in the summer. Why? Because the circumstances, the energy balance is different. So the manifestation is different. Right. So food is energy. We are energy. Why would we eat the food? And what does the food do to us? We eat the food because, or that while eating the food, it makes us connect to that balance of energies that is manifested by the food. We directly connect to that. Then it depends person to person, and there are differences between races and places on the globe. It depends then on who you are, how you've been made, as to what you absorb from that food. some people need or absorb, better word, some people absorb more sugars. Others have problems in absorbing a lot of fats. So the personal differences is what makes your personal contact with a message from the outside world. The message contains information about the energy balance at that period of time in your environment, your direct environment, about the outside world. You can then say, well, that's a bit silly because I've got eyes, I've got ears, I've got a nose, I can see and touch things, and so I get information from the outside world. I know it's winter because I'm feeling cold. Yes, that's true. But each of our senses has a very limited view of that energy spectrum. Food gives us another example, brings information from the outside world to the body. It tells us what it's like in the outside world, what the balance is. Has the summer been good? If we had a good summer, if we have a warm summer, a prolonged warm summer, then we'll find that there is a lot more juicy fruits. There's a lot more sugar in the fruits. So that is important because it brings that message to the system. You put it inside a tube, which is still the outside world, and then your system picks out what it is most attached to, is most attracted to. What you absorb is the message that your system is getting from that outside world. And that tells your system how to be in that outside world. So it's a balancing act. You now have something concrete, if you like, to make sure that you respond in an appropriate way to your environment, to what is going on there. So the food delivers the message from the environment and is the product of the circumstances in that environment over a period of time. Fruit, vegetables need to grow. So how does it grow? Over 2 months, 6 weeks, 2 months? What has the weather been like? What have the circumstances been like? And that message is what we get from the food that we eat, from whatever it is that we drink. Now, that message gives us an idea also of how much there is. If there's an abundance of food, we open up. We're not so scared. Life is good. So there's a simple message in that. If food is scarce, we become scared. We become worried. We express it in terms of, will I have enough to eat tomorrow? Will my children have enough to eat tomorrow? But we're really scared that life is on the way out because not enough vegetables, not enough fruits are growing, are being produced by nature. So nature is actually on the way out, is dying out. Those are messages that we get from the food. It also means, and this is really, really crucial, those messages only mean something if they are real. What are real messages? Well, when I eat an apple from South Africa, I have no idea, or it doesn't tell me anything about my own environment. When I have broad beans from Israel, it doesn't tell me anything about my own environment. If I have strawberries at Christmas, it doesn't tell me anything about my current situation and my current environment. So, food only means something and only keeps us alive properly and in balance if we eat what is there at the moment. Our own environment, and I'm not saying that it's got to be your own garden, and it's not that the food has to come from an area within 10 miles or something. There can be differences, but essentially it's about your environment, not the other side of the world. In England, we don't need kiwis. We don't even need bananas, right? Because we don't have them. So we're much better off getting that information via the food and the vegetables that nature produces at that time. Food is a message. It's an important message. It's a message about life and death in our surroundings. And if we get our food from elsewhere, we are missing the point. We're not getting the message. And therefore, we are confusing our system. And when you confuse your inner system, then things go wrong. Because your system, on the one hand, for instance, it knows it's winter, it's cold, there's nothing growing. And then I get oranges, bananas, kiwis, strawberries. And I eat those because I've been told they're full of vitamins. Yeah. So now my system gets the message. It's all okay. It's open up because it's warm. There's plenty of juicy and fruits with lots of sugar. Well, really, we should dig down, we should close up, and we should eat root vegetables in order to keep that closed up. That is, and if you then confuse your system that way, the internal metabolism gets confused, gets out of sync, it splits up, and that is where you end up with serious diseases, serious things that go wrong. That is really what food is about, and that is what food, the message of food, it's the energetic value of food, right? And that is what is so important, and not sugars, fats, and those contents. That doesn't mean anything to nature. We don't need to know any of that. And in a sense, if you think about it properly, you can't know any of that. Because in order to know what is inside a vegetable or a fruit, you have to destroy it in a laboratory and calculate the figures and what have you. But once you've destroyed it, you can't eat that anymore. Then you pick the next one and you go, this one contains this and that and so much and so forth. You don't know because it's a different apple. So you don't know. There is no way you can know these things. And you don't need to. All you need to know is, where does it come from? Is it in season? That is the message I want to give my system.
Right. So as usual, I've got quite a few observations there. Let me just look at my notes. So it's trying to figure out an order. I'm going to start off with a little documentary I seen a few years ago regarding the oldest people. I think it was in the Mediterranean or Europe. And this chap went and visited an Italian island and a Greek island. And what a lot of people talk about is the Mediterranean diet. Now, like you said before, that's not much use if you're living in the Antarctic or the Arctic. And what they tend to focus on is the food. It must be something physical. And so they went to these, I can't remember the name of the islands, and they visited two men who were well into the 80s. And I specifically remember one man, whether it was on the Greek island or the Italian island, and he was in his mid 80s. He had his little fishing boat, and he was still going out fishing on a regular basis. He'd come back, you know, pick a few vegetables. Maybe the neighbor had killed the chicken, and they'd still have his glass of red wine. And he was a fit man, mid 80s, still fishing. And people like to focus on, is it the red wine? Is it the tomatoes? Is it the olive oil? And when you speak to these men, you realize actually on a deeper level, they enjoy what they're doing. They enjoy the surroundings. Apart from the stress of stay and survive, which wasn't a negative stress, it was something they enjoyed providing for themselves. Rather than the actual food, it seemed to be these men, they'd found a nice life balance. There was no extra pressure from the system, just the pressure of nature to survive. That's my first observation.
Can I pick in on this one? We are living organisms, and the first priority of every living organism is to keep itself alive. So you collect your food, you gather your food. So if you have to go out fishing in order to catch your food, if you have to go out into the forest to find your food and pick it, that is what keeps you alive. If somebody just brings it to the table every time and you just survive because it's there, then you lose the real connection of life. Yeah, everything that we consume has much more value if we have a connection to it. So either there is a direct connection, as in it's my own garden, yeah, it's my own fish, the fish that I caught, my own chickens, whatever it is, or it's very close. When it's very close, it means that that energy is still very strong. So again, you know, if I don't have any chickens, then the best for me to eat would be chickens from one particular person. One or two particular persons that I know very well in my neighborhood. That would mean a lot more to me, has a lot more value to me in life and keeping me alive than anything that I can buy in Asda or Sainsbury's or wherever. That's the point.
Yeah. So before I go into other observations, I'm going to ask you something now that actually may seem contradictory to everything that you've said, but you have mentioned it in the seminar, which is there are people who don't, what we would say, have a healthy diet. They may eat plenty of junk food, but seem to do okay. And there are people like you've mentioned, which you have kind of answered this question now, but Linda McCartney, I know you've used her as an example before, is somebody who had the money, who was into organic, fresh, local food, and then died of cancer at a young age. So it kind of seems a contradiction, but then you have to, again, look at the emotional state of the person behind it.
Yes, because It isn't what goes into your mouth. It's what you take from that. And this is the big difference. You know, the 80-year-old guy on a small island having to go out fishing, gather some greens and make his meal, he will get, if you like, everything out of that. The people who are living on junk food, they don't see it as junk food. They see it as something that is keeping them alive. So they embrace it and they get from that enough to survive. If you eat junk food and you go, oh my God, you know, I shouldn't have eaten this. Oh my God, you can't. How can anybody survive on this? Then your system, your gut, where the absorption happens, goes, oh, we don't want it. Oh, yes, we do. No, we don't. No, we, yes, no, well, and confusion and nothing. And so there isn't the proper absorption. The other thing is you can eat as healthily, whatever that may mean, because I don't know what that means, but you can eat healthy food. That doesn't mean to say that you are going to be healthy. Why not? Because food is only a message and a connection you make to the outside world, to your environment. That is all it is. But what keeps you healthy is your mind that is connected or that gets the messages from your inner self, from who you really are, what you need, when you need it, instead of, you know, what we have been told we need to do. So you can eat as much organic food as you like and still die of cancer at a very early age. Why? Because the cancer has nothing to do with the food. The other way around, you know, if you've got cancer and you start eating organic food in order to get you healthy again, that won't happen either. So you're not healthy because of your food, and you're not unhealthy, diseased, ill because of the food. The food is nothing more than a message from your outside world. And that balance, you with your environment, your outside world, is only one of the balances in life. It's not all of the balances.
Yeah, so as you've mentioned, breatharians, no, I've never met any of these people. I've obviously heard about this, and it makes sense that that could potentially be our future evolutionary path. So it does mean to think that there are some people, because of how they are, how they're made, who need that local seasonal food because they're not aware enough to create the messages of themselves and of the environment. There are some people in certain aspects of life who maybe don't need that message as much because they're more conscious of themselves and the world. So I suppose it's, again, a very personal thing. Somebody could go downhill on junk food, but some people might not affect them. Some people might need them local seasonal messages. Some people are so confident of who they are and how they function that they might not need them seasonal messages. So again, it comes down to a very individual thing.
Yeah. And the main reason for me mentioning it is just to say that it's possible for a human not to eat and to be perfectly healthy. It's a possibility. With other words, it lies within the human range. Yeah. As I said, we don't all should be doing it. But one of the things is, strangely enough, when you're ill, whatever that illness is, the first message you get from your system is stop eating. You don't feel hungry anymore. You don't want to eat. And if you do, you throw up. Right? Why would that be? If food is life, then surely you need to eat more when you're ill. But your system doesn't tell you that. It tells you to stop eating. In other words, become a breatharian. Drink some water, have a tea. Okay, yeah? But don't eat, because it's going to make it worse. So the recovery period includes being a breatharian. I'm exaggerating, but essentially that's what it is.
Yeah. So if you could have a little bit of going back to the previous message, if you could have a nice little piece of chocolate cake with cream on it, enjoy it and don't feel guilty. That's the main message.
Don't confuse the message. You're gonna eat something that looks good. It may not have a lot of life messages in it, but it looks good. You're attracted to it, and then you have to repel it. Not because you want to, not because what you want is your attraction to it, but repelling it comes from what you've learned, what you've been told. Now you're in conflict. That's the basis of illness. We'll talk about that in a future talk that we will do.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm interested in, we talk about energy and the energy a cell has to do its jobs, its functioning. And you're talking like food essentially is not the physical matter, but it's an energy source, and it's a message. The medical profession say energy is given to the cell by sugar molecules. That's the energy source, which is a physical thing, which I know you don't believe and I don't believe. So I'm wondering, what is it that gives the cell what we call energy, the ability to produce movement? Is it that something internal in our system that we're tapping into, or is it we're breaking down these physical things into energy and like charging our battery, as it were, with their energy source, or a bit of both?
The main source of energy is oxygen, for every cell. So oxygen is the preferred choice. There are several reasons for it. One reason is it's quick because it's a gas. So it doesn't take a lot of energy to do something with it. Two, it's available. It's always available. We're made that way. There's always oxygen going around in our system and passing by every single cell of your system. So oxygen is the main energy source. But the way the medical profession has produced the ATP circle of energy, which is breaking down the sugar and so on, and then ending up with energy, it's the wrong way around. We burn oxygen, and sugar is one of the waste products after the cell has burned its energy. So if you have a high sugar level in your blood, don't forget the blood sample is taken from the venous blood of your arm, which is the venous blood is the blood that goes back to the heart and then to the lungs to be oxidized again, oxygenated again. It's the waste, that blood, the venous blood, carries the waste products from the cells away from the cells. And in that waste product, if you have a high level of sugar, it means that your cells are burning a lot of energy, much more than they need to under normal circumstances. So which means the circumstances have changed. So in which way? Well, you burn more energy when you're under pressure. So the person with a high blood sugar level, or periods in your life when you have a higher blood sugar level in your venous blood than you normally would have. Those people, or those periods, are periods of time where you function under extreme pressure. So the sugar is a waste product after the energy has burned. It's not a direct supply of energy. I said the main energy source is that oxygen. Why? Because you can use a lot of other things, including burning waste. So sugar can be used as energy source. Fat is used as an energy source, but it's not the priority. First, oxygen. If that is falling short of the demand, fat will be broken down and will be used as a source of energy. So we're going from gas as a easy way and an efficient way of getting to energy to more complex structures, matter. They can be used, but only when needed and only for a short period of time. Yeah. But think about the cancer process. Those people, they lose all their fat in their body. It's all used up for what? To be burned. Why? Because the system is under a high pressure, continuously under high pressure, and they're unable to meet the energy demands of the cells just by supplying oxygen. So they go on to burning less favorable matter. And that is basically how it works.
Yeah, so I won't divert off the subject here, but I know you've written about what I'll use a name for once, diabetes, which seems that if the medical profession have got it the wrong way around, their treatment, should we say, of introducing more insulin to absorb more sugar is actually building up more waste in the system. It has the opposite effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're talking about food, then we've got the message, but a lot of people say after they've been ill and they've come through a healing process, maybe they've fasted for a few days, and a lot of people recommend to just start coming back maybe on a bit of bone broth, just light soup to get the digestive systems rolling. But I know people talk about the animal fats in the broth that help to rebuild the system. So is it the actual physical animal fats themselves that the body can utilize to rebuild, or are the cells completely capable of rebuilding themselves from within themselves, and it's just the energy they're taking out of these fats?
The cells rebuild themselves. They get going again. But if your energy level or the reserves in the cells are very, very low, if you then use animal fats, but in an appropriate way, yeah, don't eat raw meat or anything like that, or bacon. It's too much in one go. But if you put it in a watery solution, and particularly also if you have it warm, then the message is that the environment is strong. It's solid, right? And that is what these cells, that is the message these cells need to actually go full steam ahead. If you just keeping these people on watery soups or vegetable broths or whatever, then it will take longer, because it's a good message. There is still life, and that's okay. But it's not a solid. It's in the rank of gas, liquids, and solids. The animal fats are a lot heavier than the vegetable fats. So it's about that kind of message that says it's strong again. We're strong. Our environment is strong, and you'll get strong again. And they just respond to that. So the more your environment is not sure about the healing, yeah, the more confusion you've got, and therefore the slower the healing process. Yeah. Now think about this. You've had a cancer diagnosis, you've had a treatment, and then the doctor says, you're healed. There's no sign of any cancer anywhere. Right? That's a message. And then he follows it up with, but you have to come back every 3 months for checkups so that we can see if it has returned. Guaranteed your cancer will return again. Why? Because you're not giving it a strong healing message. You shouldn't have a but at the end of it. I'm healed. I'm fine. Right? Stay away from me. I don't need any checkups. But it may come back and I'll die. Yes. And when it comes back, because you are every 3 months you're going for a checkup and it comes back, you stand no chance whatsoever. Because your system has become so weak and so confused about how to stay alive, how to feed life, that it can't do it anymore.
But it seems to me then it's about the right message at the right time. So if we feel ourselves out of balance, stressed, and we choose to go to bed consciously and not eat, and to fast with a purpose, there's obviously a difference between not eating and fasting. Starvation and fasting seem on the surface the same thing, but they're completely different processes.
Yeah.
So, just because you haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days doesn't mean you're fasting. It just means, you haven't eaten. But when you go with the mindset of the process, right, I'm fasting now, I'm not well. And then all of a sudden you reach your peak, you start to feel a little better. You think, right, I think I need to go through a healing stage now. So you might have a bit of fatty bone broth. Then that's the appropriate message at the appropriate time. And you see how that goes. So it seems to me, yeah, like you're saying, that makes sense with these oily animal fats. I was always wondering if we needed then to incorporate them into our system, like some people say. But it is a powerful message to the system. So it seems to be all about messages and being consciously aware of the process, and for you yourself, giving yourself the right message at the appropriate time and behaving in the way that is in accordance with that message and not a contradiction to that message.
Yeah, and if it's in accordance with that message, then you may think, oh, I've been ill, so I'm not going to eat for a little while. Or you're so busy and you forget to eat. Yeah. So there's no message of hunger or anything like that. Your system doesn't panic. It's different. If you want to eat, you feel you need to, you want to eat and you can't because there is no food. That becomes starvation. And that can really go fairly quickly. Your deterioration can go fairly quickly, because if there is not quickly coming a different message of saying, oh, at least here is some food, then your system will shut down in response to its environment. There's no food. Okay, then I feel weak. I have no strength, I can't focus anymore, and I'll die. That's starvation. There's nothing to do with the idea of fasting or not eating.
Yeah. For anyone, there's I'll put actually a link below when we put up the video of your Quantix website that has a good article there on fasting,
Yeah.
which incorporates the whole mind as well as just not eating.
Yeah.
That goes through that. So another observation here is, like you say about, I've heard you use this phrase waste management when you're thinking of food before. So yeah, food is a physical thing and we only absorb in the message of it. Yeah, ideally you would get local and seasonal to get the right messages. But if your mind's in the right space and you're in a good, healthy balance with your environment and with your food, it may be less important, the quality of the food, because you could maybe survive on less quality food because you're already in a good mind space. But then to always consider the fact that whatever goes in isn't being used by the body. It's just being absorbed, broken down and flushed out, which uses an awful lot of energy. So even though we're saying, yeah, necessarily junk food isn't a bad thing if your mind's right, but it will take more energy than a simple local seasonal food. It all comes down to energy.
Yeah.
And if people are just maybe conscious of the amount of energy they're at, because I know when I have a meal, especially when not so much in your 20s, but after you're 40, 50, when you have a meal, you just want to lie down. And when we lived in Peru in the Amazon, because obviously it gets quite hot in the day, but I remember the builders there, we were building an extension on our house there. They'd have the meal at 1 o'clock. They'd have the meal, sorry, at 12 o'clock. And then they wouldn't go back to work till about 1:45. And they'd be, after about 10, 15 minutes after their meal, they'd be sleeping for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Boom, gone.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the heat is a part of that, but it's a routine to say they eat, they rest.
Yeah. But the other side of the coin works as well, and that is overeating. People make the direct connection with overeating and becoming fat and becoming overweight. There is no direct connection. It's about your mindset, because you put in a lot of food, which is, from the moment it enters your system, the message has been received, and then the food particles itself become waste, and then it's a waste management problem. So indeed, you're right. Then the more I eat, or the more that enters my system, the more energy I will need in order to manage that waste, to recycle it. That's correct. But if I've eaten all that and I've really enjoyed it, and I really don't think about my weight or the time that is required and the amount of energy that I will need to absorb that food and to recycle the matter, then it doesn't matter. Why? Because when I've overeaten, then there follows a period, a time, this can be many hours, this can be half a day, this can be 2 days, it doesn't matter, of not eating or eating very little, which means there's plenty of energy and plenty of time to get rid of that stuff. And so I won't get fat when I overeat. Don't forget that your traditional tribes, they would have mega meals throughout their normal existence, except when there were festivities. And then they would have 3 days or a whole week of overeating, overconsumption of alcohol, over this, over that, over whatever. They weren't fat. They weren't fat because it all came back down enough time to allow the waste management system to do its work. So again, it's the confusion in the mind that causes the problem, not the food, not eating little, not eating a lot, not eating the right things, not eating the wrong things. If you don't confuse your system, whatever the situation is, then your system will deal with it. It will have the know-how, the skills, and the energy to do it.
Is there anything to say that people have what we call a level of metabolism, how fast you can process the food? I mean, me myself, I'm quite a good eater. I don't overeat, but I enjoy my food. I don't have to think about it. I never put on weight on. I'm always running up and down a ladder all day. I've never been able to put weight on. Although a funny thing, I used to be a little bit heavier when I used to do weights, because a chap said to me, you can do arm raises all day, you'll never put on weight. He said, to put on weight, you have to exercise your big muscles, your buttocks and your thighs, because that's sending a message of bigness to the body. Because when you exercise your thighs and your buttocks, actually then it's like a message of growth, and it actually worked. I put on quite a bit of weight. But is there something to say by getting to know your own metabolism?
Yeah,
so people are prone to put on more weight.
We all have different metabolisms. We're all made differently. So some people will find it very difficult to get rid of what is for them a too big meal, too much food, and they're suffering, or they feel that for 2 or 3 days. Somebody else doesn't. He can have a big meal and 12 hours later, it's gone. He doesn't feel that anymore. Just like some people are able to quite happily not eat for 1 or 2 days and not even think about, not even having the slightest information that something is out of the ordinary. While others, if they miss one meal or they're 2 hours late for that meal, they're dying. They can't function anymore, and they need a Mars bar or something to keep them going. Yeah. So we have different metabolisms, and that connects to, it isn't what you put in your mouth, it's what how your system responds to it. Comes back to the same message we have put out in earlier talks, and that is, it isn't the thing by itself that is having an effect. It's you responding to the thing that creates your effect, not the effect of the entire population, your effect. And this is the same.
Yeah, I know we've got a little bit of time left, not too much. If we just go back, this has just reminded me of something on the spot. If we go back to trauma, and I know you've mentioned before, it's not that chocolate cake. That chocolate cake could have a deep meaning of love from childhood. And people can use chocolate especially, that's just an example of a way of making them feel better about themselves. So there's also that connection to our childhood with food as well, and certain circumstances. Again, meaning, going back to the meaning put on it, not the thing itself, chocolate cake itself, but how it makes people feel.
Yeah. And so you see small children and sweets. Oh, on the whole, they go together very well. And sweet is a message of love, caring, warmth, feeling safe. So that is what children want to feel. And eating sweets, eating chocolates and other sweets is trying to connect with that message. So they get that message from what they put in their mouth. They like it because that is what they're searching for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know, going back to the seasonal food again, switching subjects again. I know in Peru they have, at least for the last time we lived there, this is the season of strawberries when they're out there, and then they're gone. And when it was the season of the mangoes, they all come in and they're gone. And people are still used to living like that. And it was quite enjoyable because I remember when the last time we were there, the mangoes had just come into season. And people were excited about it and you enjoyed it. And there was a period when it was really cheap and the mangoes, and then they were gone. But then something else had come out. And so they're still, at least at the moment, used to having seasonal fruits and vegetables. But over here in this country now, that even the idea of that has completely gone now. Completely gone.
Yeah. Then our culture society comes in and tells us we're doing it all wrong. We're entitled to mangoes all year round. We're entitled to bananas, kiwis, strawberries all year round. You know, it is a expression of wealth. Well, it may be that, but it certainly isn't an expression of health.
So I think we just got about a minute or so left. So to have a roundup and a balanced view of this, really, I think, again, is local seasonal is best because they're the messages you need. Ultimately, the message that are going to go into your being. So if you're in control of your being, you don't have to be too strict on that. If you're going to have a bit of chocolate cream cake because it's your daughter's birthday, then enjoy it. Why not? Enjoy it. And I think it's kind of like a repeating thing in that ultimately gaining health is about gaining knowledge of yourself. So you can't give me a diet, oh, this is great for you, because you can get an idea of how I am.
No.
The idea of the things you teach is getting people to know themselves.
And health is balance. And one of those important balances is you as a person in balance with your environment, your nature's environment. And food helps you to evaluate that balance and maintain it.
So in a way, we have kind of a psychological dependency on food that we could potentially evolve away from in the very, very distant future, which would put the vegan and the carnivore argument way behind us in the future. That'll be long gone. So a very last quick thing on diet fads, veganism and carnivore diet, etc. Everyone swears by them, but I've read as you follow on in that chapter, you talk about supplements and you talk about anything new you introduce in your life will always have an immediate effect because there's a change. And these fads just seem to be fads that don't seem to have a long-term thing, but in the short term, everything seems great.
Yep. And on that note, we can say goodbye and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah. We'll leave that for next week. Okay.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.